Hello, friends, and welcome to Service of Change's Changecast, your podcast for change. I'm your host, Dennis Nappi II, with Service of Change, where small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. This is what we call round 2 of the Changecast, which is the no-budget operation. We were just about 10 minutes into our show, and my internet crashed and everything went down. So if anybody was out there listening live, obviously, the links have all changed, so there's no way you can catch us now live. My deepest apologies, but you'll catch us on the podcast on iTunes and at serviceofchange.com, where this podcast is associated. So we're just going to jump into the show. We're going to do a shortened version now just because it's late at night and we all got to get up early tomorrow. So we bring on my two esteemed co-hosts, Joel the Provocateur and Lori Latatak Latimer. Joel, what's going on, dude?
You're like the Micro Machine guy. I don't know if anybody gets the reference. You're like an auctioneer mode. It's cool.
I'm trying to just auction through it, get through the intro stuff, you know?
Yeah, no. It's cool. I admire the adaptability. But,
that's what I call freestyling.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Good stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I like the technical difficulties because, like, I don't have any experience with things running well.
Yes.
So this just I live off of adrenaline. So the more problems, the better.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I love problems. You would think I do with all the problems that I have.
Well, it does. Yeah, it does make you at least practice thinking on your feet. Like, it makes you adapt. And
Yes.
I like it too in that sense.
I agree, but sometimes I feel like I've got enough practice.
Yes.
I'm ready to just coast.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so if any listeners out there have a better solution for us, no, I mean, we have a lot of success with the Google Hangouts, but you know, I know there's better mediums out there, and I honestly just haven't had the time to research getting the show up there. We have a solid show that should be on a larger medium, in all honesty. So any listeners out there, send us some emails, man. Let us know what your recommendations are, what your suggestions are of how we could get onto a stronger platform here. Just email me. That's Dennis Nappi II, Nappii at gmail.com. I want to hear from you, and we'll see what we can do. So let's jump into the show. We had a whole bunch of other, I guess, witty banter at the beginning of our show that is now lost and defunct. But I'm not editing it. Never mind. That stuff is gone. Too much other stuff going on. Real quick, just give some quick plugs. Lori's book is coming out May 2nd, The Art of Service, a collection of haiku poems. It's available for pre-order now on Kindle for just 99 cents. I highly recommend it. And look in the near future at our social media feeds at Lori Latimer 1 on Twitter, Dennis Nappi II, Nappii, and Facebook.com/Service of Change for Lori's upcoming trailer for The Art of Service. It's a stop motion. Well, Lori, I don't know how much you want me to say about it, but
You can just say that it's stop motion with origami, and it's amazing.
it is amazing. It's a really beautifully artistic, poetic piece of video. And then also tomorrow, I will be dropping the first of hopefully several promotional videos for I Am Human, which is coming up in just 2 short weeks. It'll be available to read for free online if you subscribe to the secret newsletter, which is also free at serviceofchange.com/I Am Human. Now, I know I'm the one that made these videos, so I'm obviously proud of them. They're pretty cool. They're pretty thought-provoking. Check them out tomorrow. You're going to see it on the Facebook feed, on Google+, on Twitter, and at serviceofchange.com. So please check them out, support them, share. I'm trying to get the word out about this book that I'm allowing people to read for free just because I think, I want people to hear what I have to say, and I want to get your feedback because I'm trying to learn as much as I can about this subject. So I think that's a great way to start the discussion. All right, so let's jump into our show. Tonight we're talking about small changes with massive impacts, and we thought it'd be a neat idea to explore kind of our first attempts at trying to make a difference, or if not first, at least a notable attempt we've made in our youth trying to make a difference in our lives and in the surrounding world. So, Joel or Lori, either of you want to have a story you want to share, and start us off, or?
Well, sure. I mean, when we were having our technical glitch, I was talking with Joel about, what kind of inspired me to think about how I started, wanting to be a do-gooder for the rest of my life, and that was, Dennis, our mutual 4th grade teacher, Miss Core, at Highland Park Elementary School, and how her, she was so passionate, and just so articulate, and was the first teacher that I felt like really let us see how she felt about things in the world. And she talked a lot with us about animal cruelty and animal abuse that was really important to her. And I think a lot of what she told us about was upsetting, but it really opened our eyes and gave us a chance to think about how we're interacting with the world. She would talk to us about how institutions like zoos and circuses and pet shops, there's actually a lot of abuse in there of
Right.
animals, and these creatures that we adore and just go to admire actually being harmed to entertain us. um, and so she really, I mean, I think the whole class, like, we really started to think about how we what we're doing, like when we're just out in the world. And so she inspired me when I was 9 to go on this very intense letter writing campaign.
Hmm.
Um, I went through the house and wrote to every cosmetic company, like all of my mom's makeup, all the shampoo, all the soap, the hairspray, and wrote to those companies to see if they did animal testing. With the intention being that if these companies were testing on animals, then my family was going to boycott them.
Right. Small
Um,
changes in the early stages right there.
yeah, yeah. And so, that's, I spent, even after that school year, I would still do that. Because that was, for me as a little 9-year-old, that was the only way that I could really think about how I could make any kind of impact.
Well, and that can have a powerful impact. The boycotting is a powerful thing as consumers. And speaking of animal cruelty, we just had it up on our Facebook feed at Service to Change. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, is pulling their elephants. They say by 2017, all elephants are going to be taken out of the circus. Now, they really did a great PR move the way they presented this story. They said, we're not worried about I forget how they worded it. We're not doing this to save face. We're just going to invest that money in an elephant preserve. So whether that was their initial intention or they just want to make it look good for PR, the elephants, it sounds like, actually getting a pretty good deal. They're going to be put at their elephant
Yeah.
preserve in Florida. They're going to be well taken care of. But there has been a lot of heat. A lot of people have been boycotting circuses and been protesting circuses. Those are small changes. Like I said, all you have to do for that one is just don't go to the circus.
Yeah.
And that's what we're always saying at Service Change. It's so, in some cases, it's so simple. Just don't go. Don't give them your money. Spend it somewhere else. And your voices have been heard. And so I commend the people that have been, really advocating for that, because it made a difference, and it's helped those elephants. Whatever they say their reasoning really is, at the end of the day, we know what happened, and the elephants have been helped. And it didn't have to get violent, like some people get. They get all crazy and blowing stuff up. So I'm proud of that. And Miss Core, she had I remember that passion that she had, just for the environment and for animals and stuff. And obviously that impact stuck with you. So as a teacher, there's no greater compliment to hear that years later that your student remembers that, and that it had that type of impact. I remember a project for the environment that we had to do, and I still remember this. My slogan was, we had to make a slogan to help protect the environment, and mine was, our lakes will glitter if we don't litter. And I made a poster, and my water was made out of tinfoil, which was litter in of itself, but it looked pretty cool. So that was the Highland Park teachers, I commend them all the time, and they were really good. I think about them a lot when I'm teaching my students. So great story, Lori. That was a great great reflection, and the start of an incredible journey of change and helping others. So let's move over to Joel, the provocateur. Joel, anything that comes to mind with your experiences with trying to make a difference in the world?
Well, I mean, I was ready-made to provoke and be a provocateur from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember just thinking about, we all went to the same elementary school. I was there earlier than both of you guys, but just like picturing it as I'm listening to you guys, I just flashed back to remembering. I think it was when I was in 4th grade, the 5th graders were taught, or were being taught about like drug. It was the 80s, and like the drug epidemic was real bad, and they were being taught about that. And then they had them do an assignment. This is the other side of that. Well, not the other side. It's very similar, in fact, to what Miss Core was doing, but coming from a different ideological perspective. They had them write letters to it was a president. I'm not sure if it was President Reagan or if it was President Bush.
Probably
one or the
Reagan.
other.
That was the big, when Say No to Drugs was Nancy Reagan.
I think it was like one of Reagan's last years there. Yeah, it was like probably 86, 87, something like that. Yeah. And they had them all write the same basic letter, which was to try to get him to sign into a law a mandatory execution for convicted drug dealers.
What?
Whoa!
I know. So
wait,
my small change.
Wait! I gotta cut you off there. Hold on. Sure. I need to absorb this for a second. Your elementary school class.
Not mine. It was the grade ahead of me, but I got wind of it.
Yeah, but an elementary school class, to make a difference in the world, wrote to the President of the United States asking him to kill people. I just want to be clear on that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry to cut you off on that, Joel. But
no. But it's connected because now maybe it's just from my parents because they wouldn't agree with something like that, but I was just like, whoa, like that. Even as a 10-year-old, I was like, I don't know. This whole thing, like, did these kids think of this themselves?
Probably.
You know what I mean?
Like something a kid would think of.
But, or like, were they being like influenced in their beliefs? I don't know, but I didn't agree with it. I didn't think that like the punishment fits the crime. But if you fast forward,
many of them would probably be faced with that sentence in the future.
In the future, especially around here, think about that. But
what happened?
You fast forward to 8th grade, and that was right when the Gulf War started. And in our classroom, we were like, they were hyping up, like, we're gonna go take out Saddam Hussein. And like, I raised my hand in my social studies class, and I'm like, wait a minute, weren't we friends with Iraq against Iran? For the last 8 years?
Right. Wow.
And my
your age to recognize that.
I was like, this.
I remember all that hype in Beverly. You're at Beverly Hills, right?
Yeah, Mr. Nye was my teacher, and he just is like, well, sometimes you gotta shift alliances or something like that. I was like, no, like that you can shift alliances, but why is it that suddenly like for 8 years we're supporting Iraq against Iran, and Iran was the big enemy, and and then all of a sudden we're going after Iraq, and Iraq's the big enemy, and it's just the nature of the rhetoric that was going on is what kind of I couldn't obviously verbalize it like that, but if it had been sold that the whole time that there are a bunch of bad guys and we're choosing the least of all these evil bad guys, then that would be different. But that's not how it was sold to us. It was being sold to us that there are good guys, and we would never get in bed with bad guys.
Right.
That would never happen.
Yeah, no, you're right, Joel, and that's how the media has worked throughout our lives. I mean, and it really only takes a couple weeks worth of them playing the same story over and over again for people to get behind it and say, oh yeah, they're the bad guys, let's kill them now. It's like, well, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere with the Iran issue if it wasn't for Iraq, being our ally back then. And it's crazy how those things started. What's even crazier though, again, as an 8th grade kid, I'm not surprised knowing the person you are, but that you picked up on that and called your teacher out on it.
I don't know if this is a small change, but way before that, more when I was like in 1st grade, we lived in Lancaster, and I went to a elementary school there called Martin Luther King Jr. It had been renamed. It used to be called Higbee. And it was 90% black and Puerto Rican. I was one of the 10% of the white kids that were there, and they asked us to do a project where what are we proud of our school? And I said, I'm proud that my school is named after King. So I won because I pointed out that I like our name because that dude is cool. I like that dude.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
But
that competition or that contest. That's awesome, dude.
Well, that speaks. I mean, I can't really take the credit for most of this stuff. That speaks to my parents having been like that, and me and Lori were talking about it. Like my parents modeling this stuff for me, where they
Right.
weren't necessarily telling me what to think, but I would listen to them. And my mother, they were big on boycotts. I remember learning what a boycott was for the first time.
Yeah.
I think I, on my own accord, tried to write a letter to Ronald Reagan when I was like 4, saying that he
Uh-huh.
needed to give jobs to the homeless people or something, but it
Yeah.
wasn't sent. But that was, I think, when we want to make changes on other people or help them make changes, our actions often speak much louder than our words.
You're absolutely right. Yep.
Because the person, you might not eventually agree. Like, I don't necessarily agree with. I still think Martin Luther King's a great person. You know what I mean? But
Right.
I wouldn't write a letter to Reagan saying give jobs to the homeless people because I just understand. My point is
you understand it differently. You were just trying to
Yeah.
help as a
Yeah,
kid.
but my point, like a lot of my parents' beliefs, I don't even share anymore. I
Right.
share some of them, but the passion to actually try to understand what's going on, to then have beliefs about it,
Right.
was what was modeled in me, and that was what I would constantly try to understand the world around me, and it caused me to have nightmares, and I had anxiety as a child. So some of it, I don't know how healthy it was, but
Right. It's tough. It's a tough line as a parent. You know.
And I think, even like with Miss Core and her opening up, our awareness, I think, yeah, like I was definitely, I mean, I was a pretty like wound up kid too, but I was definitely like extra sensitive to everything that was going on for like that period of time because
sure.
She kind of let us know that you got to keep your eyes open, um, and just think about how we're all affecting each other. And
Yeah, we're interconnected, absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, me going on a letter writing campaign, for animal rights, that's not, animal rights is not. It's something that obviously like I care about because I'm a person, but it's not
Sure.
my my cause. But she showed me, that when you feel strongly about something that you think is wrong or hurting other people or other creatures, like you can do something about it. And I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah. You have that power. That's
yeah, I
empowering.
don't know when I would have learned that if not for her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty
Well,
awesome. You know, I'm thinking real quick as you guys are
sure.
talking about this. I completely forgot about this, but I remember being around that age, and I wonder if this is why I wanted to do this. When they used to ask us what we wanted to do when we grew up, at that point in my life, when I guess like third, fourth grade, I used to say, I want to be a judge so I can protect the animals. Because all I knew was a judge was a position of authority, and I thought that as a judge, I'd be able to protect animals. And I said that for like 2 years, man. Just as a little kid, not understanding, the world exactly how it worked. I was like, I'll be a judge, and I'm going to save all the animals. I didn't even know what animals needed to be saved or how to save them, but I'm remembering that now, how I had that drive
Yeah.
too. Highland Park was such a neat little
Yeah.
community when we were
Yeah,
there.
and just even like the education on environmentalism, just like your poster about litter, but making us think about
It was a good
even
poster.
what kind of products our family buys, and how easily does it is it biodegradable? Is it going to stick around forever? And
Yeah.
what effect is that going to have on us later? Which
We don't always think about.
hmm
Yep, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. A lot of good things to think about. So we're talking about small changes that where we kind of started trying to make a difference in the world, and it sounds like the three of us have started pretty young. Knew that we wanted to try to help people and help others. To our listeners out there, we'd love to hear about it. Let us know. Hit us up on the social media feeds. You can hit me up, Dennis Nappi II, Nappii on Twitter, Lori Latimer 1 on Twitter, or at Service of Change, Facebook.com/Service of Change, or send me an email, Dennis Nappi II, Nappii at gmail.com. Let us hear about your small changes, what you're doing. We really would like to build a sense of community here. and I'm working on some ideas for us to actually try to organize certain things, like maybe boycotts of certain areas. If we can work together and plan things at the right time, we can really have that power to make a difference and to make an impact. And I'm thinking back, it's not necessarily my first attempt at making a change, but it's one that's stuck with me my entire life. When I was in high school, in Upper Darby High School, I had an opportunity to be on the peer mediation team, and I initially thought that when they offered it to me, I thought I was getting training in if a fight broke out, I was going to jump in and break up the fight. So that's the heroic thought. I mean, I always
every teenage boy's dream.
Right, and I've always had those thoughts in my head. It's probably why I became a soldier, why I became a cop. I would always envision the action, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a hero complex. I wanted to rush in and be a hero and save the day, So, but I remember them saying, you're gonna be a peer mediator to help people with conflict. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna learn kung fu. I'm gonna jump in and break up these fights. So I went through the training though, and it had nothing to do with violence. And it's and I was in 11th grade when I got this training. And I use it today just about every day, if not the full-out mediation, at least components of it. And they taught us how to take two arguing parties and have them talk it out and mutually develop a resolution. And it's just such a beneficial skill because they reinforce in us active listening. Because when somebody's upset, they want to be heard. They just want their feelings to be heard. And I've realized I've used that as a soldier, I've used it as a cop, I've used it as a teacher, I've used it as a husband in so many different scenarios, and it's helped. So I highly recommend getting that certification. If your teachers teach your students to do it, I haven't gotten as many students trained as I would like, but I think that's on my radar of things to do in the upcoming futures to train students in that conflict resolution because it's so helpful. It really is so helpful.
Yeah, and it can stop things from escalating when you're able to have a structured, safe conversation, and especially like a neutral party there who's the only outcome they're interested in is a resolution.
Right.
Not who's right or anything like that.
Well, I was going to say I had this discussion with a group of my students today because today, I don't know, it's not even the full moon. I don't know what it was, but they were just off the chain today. And
the weather.
Yeah, I mean.
The weather broke.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, Joel. I mean, it wasn't just I was hearing people all over the place just having weird days, myself included. So, they were all crazy today. So we had to send 3 kids home, and I had to raise my voice, which I rarely do anymore, now that I'm a little bit more seasoned as a teacher. So that wasn't working. So finally, at the end of the day, I was like, everybody, come here, come into a circle, and let's have a heart-to-heart. And so we just started talking about stuff, and one of my students was talking about how he has issues with, he got into an argument with somebody pretty much right there. And I was just telling him, I was like, look, is this argument worth it? You got to be tactical when you're getting into arguments with somebody. You got to ask yourself, if what I'm saying or my reaction or my tone of voice, what effect is that going to have on this person? Is it going to cause them to get angry and argue back with me? And you got to remove yourself from that moment because at the end of the day, are you going to win that? If it's going to go to fighting, nobody wins. Now some people just want to fight and they know how to push buttons. But you gotta be smart in your approach to arguments. I have no problem saying, hey, I'm sorry, I think I'm wrong here. That throws people off, and now you're both back on a level playing field. You say, let's start over, let's have this discussion. But so just be smart in your conflict approach when you're dealing with somebody who's upset, and if they're upset with you. And that was kind of our discussion. It was a nice talk that I had with my kids. At that point, for that half hour that we spoke, they were silent until it was their turn to speak, and that's a powerful thing. When you have students' attention like that. I was grateful for it.
When I look back on my teenage years, one of the best takeaways I can get from the way I lived, the way my father and mother kind of encouraged me to live, or it kind of came as default, because my parents weren't originally from this area, and they were kind of very different from the people in my neighborhood, which also caused me to struggle because I had differing I had differing information on how to behave. But some of the things that my father taught me were just so incredibly powerful in terms of like learning about people, similar to what you're talking about, but maybe more broader. Like the idea that different people who come from different backgrounds are going to handle problems differently.
Right.
So, I mean, my teenage years, I was just surrounded by different people. Like I had a lot of Asian friends, but different kinds of Asian friends, like Chinese, Vietnamese,
Right.
Korean. My parents' best friends and pretty much only friends were Greeks across the street who later moved away. I was friends with the smart kids, and then I was friends with more like the working class Irish, Italian
Right.
kids, and I just learned so much from being around those different types of people. And my father like taught me to embrace those differences and learn from them. And later in life, when I had like major trauma in my life and I had to go like get help for it, it became so much easier to go somewhere where the environment was foreign to me, where I could have shut out the new information and be like, oh, I know better. I know. I was instantly open-minded because I've been taught that like nothing is set in stone. Like no one way of doing things is the only way of doing things. Like, and that was the change that like, I mean, that is being changeable. Like constantly being adaptable and being willing to change your perspective on things as you go forward. It can be hard though because you get confused. I get confused because I'll have multiple impulses. I'll have the kind of more the street, more working class, tough like voice in the back of my head, like don't let people push you around. Right. And it'll be combined with like the assertiveness, like you got to be assertive, and then that'll like conflict with my father, who's like just be gentle and try to understand. Like, and I'm like I don't know which one to use.
I hear you, dude, but to piggyback on that, man, I remember when I was deployed to Bosnia, or just being in the military and traveling so much as a soldier, I was always thankful that I grew up in Upper Darby because when I was growing up there, it was a true melting pot. I mean, I was exposed to every culture, and I remember we had people that were Sikhs there. We had the Asian culture, the black culture, the Greek culture, the Irish. Everything was there, and we heard their languages. We saw the way that they dressed. We saw samples of their food. So when I would travel, I remember, real quick, I remember seeing people look at another culture. Like I knew people that were like, yeah, we never had black people in our town. I'm like, what? And they wouldn't know how to act. They would really be uncomfortable around, so people of color. And I remember just thinking like, wow, like I don't have anything to say because I could go right up to anybody and talk with them, and that helped me so much in my work because I could speak to anybody because I had a cultural familiarity. I wasn't uncomfortable with it. So, Lurie, I cut you off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and also in Upper Darby, the thing is, you also get exposed to when all those cultures don't mesh well together. I mean, because, like, at least I remember in my experience, like, not all those groups got along. And even, like, I remember we had, the neo-Nazi skinheads. There was swastikas drawn on the walls and stuff like that. And, it wasn't like, like a multicultural rainbow. I don't even like the term multicultural.
No, it always didn't work.
But I think even that's important, like to see what happens when we don't, we're too scared to accept someone else's differences, or we're too brainwashed by what our parents are saying to make a decision about someone on our own.
You're absolutely right. And that fear is, and that's what I say to people all the time. It's that fear and that ignorance that makes us uncomfortable, and a lot of times that discomfort we have manifests as cruelty because we don't know how else to handle it. And that's very unfortunate. Where and Lori, when I give this talk to my students and to stuff, I always talk about your brother, and what he did. I'll go into this real quick on the air. Is when we were younger, Scott went up to I guess we were middle school, and he went up and to our listeners out there, Scott was just this classic white boy. He had these real big glasses, braces, this crazy blonde curly hair, like just a goofy looking kid when we were younger. And he walks up to a young group of black students that were, I guess I don't remember, we were walking home or what, and he flat out says, "Why can you say the N-word and I can't?" But he dropped it, and they look at him like, what's going on with this kid? And then they realize that Scott was just genuinely curious, like he just wanted to understand. And I'm sitting there, me being, stereotyping right away, going, "You can't talk to them. They're black, Scott, and you can't say that. Oh my God, you're gonna beat this up." And we ended up making friends with these kids and learning about their culture, and they explained the whole thing to them, which I'm not going to get into now, but they went through that with him, and it was a really neat, and it opened my eyes, and it shattered stereotypes for me, and it showed me, just be honest about the things you don't know. Don't be racist.
Yeah.
But Scott had a way of saying something racial that was about racism because he just wanted to know, why is this word used this way? And I want, and it developed a friendship, So I've always admired that about him, and I've always tried to take that approach with people, with cultural differences and stuff.
I was an outcast in a lot of ways with a lot of the more Irish and Italian. I mean, some of them were my friends, but other ones, I don't know. I was different. I was kind of a little goofy, and I didn't want to fight because I hadn't been taught to fight.
Right.
So a lot of times I had to learn how to fight, but I would go down to the Marion Trace, next to the Marion Trace apartments behind the firehouse, right next to the golf course, like on State Road, Westchester Pike, and that was one of the only areas that the black people tended to live back then, were at these Marion Trace apartments, and they would come and play basketball, and I actually was more comfortable with those guys. I mean, I had one or two, but I had like dozens, if not like hundreds of bad experiences with people who looked like me, and I only had two with them, and I mean, and I just felt more at home, and similar to Scott, I ended up like through playing basketball and then playing football, like I befriended another black guy from Yaden, and I went down and hung out with him and all his friends, and it was real funny. This is a funny story. One time when I was in high school, we were at a house party, and they were playing like Jamaican music, so we were all dancing. So I was like dancing real close to the one black girl, and then they turned on the lights and they started like chanting like, "Go white boy, go white boy, go!"
and it's fun when you can have that cultural respect, and you can make those jokes and laugh about it, and because you realize some of those stereotypes are kind of silly.
Yeah, they didn't mean it that way. If a stranger said that to me now, I would be
it's different.
But they meant it. They were like, "Yo, look at this guy! Like he's comfortable here. He's willing to dance."
Right, and that's a sign of respect.
Exactly.
We had that on the track team. We were culturally diverse, and we could just say anything to each other about. We made jokes about race all the time. But that's because we acknowledged that this is uncomfortable for some people, but we're so cool with each other, and it was a great, beautiful thing.
You have to build relationships.
Exactly, and that was through understanding. We faced the fears we had with that ignorance, and learned about one another. We're coming up on the end of the show. We're doing a shorter show tonight just because of that internet crash. So let's just jump into our final thoughts real quick. And Joel, Lori, Joel, you have the mic. So any final thoughts, Joel, before we go ahead and end the show?
I mean, if I'm going to reflect on my childhood and like the way, I mean, change was just the rule for me, just because I couldn't. That's just the way it was, just the nature of my parents and who they were, and that we moved here. So I couldn't necessarily go back and say that I deliberately changed. It was just I was constantly changing. I was constantly advocating for change, but. And there was a lot of disorder in my life as a result of it, and a lot of confusion that I had to sort out. So it wasn't all great and good, but I think the takeaway from it, which I kind of described in a variety of ways, was that like that kind of forced me to like expand my horizons and build more relations and just have a different relationship with what I consider the truth and what I consider right and wrong. That I have to constantly be critical of it. And sometimes it bothers people now and sometimes people think I'm a hypocrite, and sometimes I am, because I'm constantly trying on new like ways of thinking just to examine them. But I think ultimately over time I get more success that way because I'm just open. And it's tough though, because sometimes I don't know. Like I said, I don't know which thing, like which way to be from the variety of cultural influences that I've had, but I mean, just being open to other influences and just being open to like search for like the best ways to live, I think is really important and really enriching.
Couldn't agree more, Joel. And I've always admired that about you.
Thank you.
You know, even though you are the provocateur, it's a good thing because you put it out there. You know, where a lot of people keep as maybe an internal monologue, you share it, and you flat out will say, "Hey, judge me, tell me, because I want to learn from this. If I'm wrong from what I'm saying, I want you to enlighten me." And I admire that about you, because not a lot of people are willing to say that. You know, to say, "Hey, I think this way about this, and even if it's wrong, explain to me why it's wrong." You know, they don't have the courage to do that, and you do that, and I admire that a lot about you. Yep. So, Lori, Miss Lad Attack, what are your final thoughts for the show before we close it out?
I think just that, anytime we want to make a change, if there's something that we feel, strongly about, that doesn't sit well with us, it's like this balancing act of, being willing to take a risk, and not worrying about so much about the consequence, like just believing that your words and your actions, are important. If it's important to you, then put yourself out there. And as we've learned, when you take that risk and put yourself out there, lots of times you find allies, and you get this really positive ripple effect.
And we see that at Service to Change. We are starting to have people reaching out to us now and sharing stories and experiences and asking us to collaborate with them and stuff, which is a fantastic thing. And you won't know until you try. And I know I've heard from so many people, this is hard, I want to make a difference, I don't know where to begin. And it really it starts with you. What do you want to change in your life, because for the better, because it's ultimately going to have a ripple effect somewhere. So if you can make that change in your life, I always talk about diet and food and medicine. If you can find a way to eat healthier, well, that's gonna affect the bottom line of those companies that are selling the unhealthy food. So you eat healthy, encourage your kids to eat healthy, and then encourage your friends to eat healthy and show them how to do it. I mean, that's a small change that can have that ripple effect, that massive impact. And to quote a great, I'd say a musical genius, Michael Jackson, he said, "I'm looking at the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to make a change. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change." The man was a genius, and you all out there have that power to do it. He had that insight. So have that vision, have that belief, have that passion. Reach out to us at Service to Change. servicetochange.com. There's a wealth of resources there, archive of our podcasts. You can get it through RSS feed. You can get it at the servicetochange.com app. Just click the banner and save the link that opens up to your home screen for your mobile device. We are on iTunes. Just search Service to Change and get an archive of all our podcasts as well. On Twitter, Dennis Nappi II, Nappii. Lori Latimer 1. Facebook.com/Service of Change are the ways that you can connect with us. Dennis Nappi II at gmail.com. Again, that's Nappii. Thank you so much to our listeners out there. May 2nd, Lori Latimer's book, The Art of Service, a collection of haiku poems, will be available, but it's now available for pre-order. I highly recommend it, 99 cents on Kindle. Subscribe to my newsletter at serviceofchange.com/IamHuman, and you will get a free copy or able to read my book for free, I Am Human, and We Are Not Who We Think We Are, coming out March 27th. That's all with the time we have tonight, folks. Thank you very much to Lori and Joel. Thank you to all of you, our listeners out there. Please keep sharing our stuff and liking our feeds so we can help spread the word of change. And remember that small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. Be that change. Thank you.